Hi everyone, it's Pamela Nuri from Mobile Caledonia, and I'm going to be talking a little bit today about the itinerary Indian Ocean stepping stones. So previously we talked about some of the other Seychelles and Madagascar types of Indian Ocean itineraries, and today we're going to take a closer look at the type of cruise that would combine, I would say, the best of Seychelles and the best of Madagascar and run you through those options. So let me share my screen here. And the voyage that we're chatting about today is the Indian Ocean Stepping Stones. This is going next January, 7th of January 2022, and it's going on the lovely Serenissima. And it's, I would say, all of our voyages are unique. We always add a bit of this, add a bit of that, modify things. There's no quite two that are exactly the same. But this particular one has tweaked a lot of people's interest because of such a lovely combination of special and unique stops. So in this one, like I said previously, we chatted about the islands of the Indian Ocean and the Indian Ocean Odyssey, and they were really nice snapshots of the whole Indian Ocean. If you've never done the Indian Ocean before, that would be probably a really good way to start. But the Indian Ocean Stepping Stones is now a little bit more of an in-depth look, especially on the Madagascar side of things, and that is what we're going to be zooming into today. So it's on the lovely Serenissima. We can take 80 to 100 passengers. We've got 8 Zodiacs on board. We've got snorkel gear for everyone. And it's a lovely little ship with lots of outside deck space. There's a little outside area at the front. There's outside area at the back. Another sneaky one outside the back. So there's a lot of little places to go and sit and relax and just enjoy watching the sea going past on those lovely sea passages that we have in the Indian Ocean as well, where, by the way, the flying fish are quite the highlight. So this itinerary starts on the inner islands. You fly into Mahanga, and on the first day of cruising after sailing overnight, it's a really short hop, skip and a jump over to Praslin and Ladigue, and it's a very nice soft landing to start off with. We have a jetty, and we just come with the Zodiacs onto the shore in a jetty, and we get you off onto nice little air-conditioned buses, and we head off to Valley de Mai, where this cocoa palm, as you can see, is one of the hugest ones on earth, and it is a lovely UNESCO World Heritage Site on Praslin. And there's some beaches, and it's quite a nice little morning. And then in the afternoon, or sometimes the other way around, we pop over to Ladigue, which is sleepy, idyllic, paradise little island, which you can cycle around. There's not really any cars. And it's just a lovely little snapshot of what happens on the inner islands of Seychelles. And certainly, these are the types of places you might spend a pre-cruise type of DIY extension if you're interested in that. Very easy logistically and very tourist friendly. Then we start getting a little bit rougher and tougher, shall I say, and we go to one of the other islands called Arid. Arid is a really special bird island. No one lives there apart from the rangers, and there's no, you can't sleep there overnight. There's no hotel or anything like that. So it's really a special place, and we often go ashore using their tenders, if not our own Zodiacs. So they've got a very, very strict sort of avoidance of rats and introduction of non-native species policy. You come ashore by a little tender, sometimes theirs, sometimes ours, and you do a nature walk in the forest. It is one of those nature walks that will sit with you for the rest of your life. You come across these white-tailed and red-tailed tropic birds nesting right on the floor, on the trail near your feet, and the little fairy terns, which you can see on the right-hand side of the screen here, just right so close to your head, you almost miss them, and they're just so gorgeous. You do a nice sort of easy rambling nature hike on up the hill in groups with the local rangers as guides, and they're such wonderful guides. They really are engaging, and they know their stuff so well. It's an absolute pleasure working with them. And then we head on up to this lovely viewpoint and head back down again and carry on with our lives. So Arid is certainly a highlight. If we can get there. Sometimes it's rough and there's too much surf on the beach and we can't make that landing, but if we can, it's really one of the surprise highlights of the voyage, I would say. Then we move on down into the further afield islands. Now we're in the Amarante Islands, and we make a stop, if we can, at an island called Alphonse. It's actually an atoll, and it's a one resort island. We have a lovely relationship with that resort. We've been going there for so many years. It is a challenge because the ship has to stay on the outside of the atoll where there can be swell and surf and all this. And then we have to make a run around the outside of the atoll from where we find some shelter through to where there's a channel, across the channel, and it's another 4 miles across the lagoon before we can get you on shore. So it's quite an adventure before we even get there. And then on shore, it's just absolutely tranquil, calm, lovely. Of course, the odd little squall will just wash through every now and then, being in the tropics. But it's a wet landing. We offer very good snorkeling here at Alphonse inside the lagoon. So really nice, calm, easy snorkeling. And this is usually our first snorkeling day, or would be our first snorkeling day on a trip like this. Might be able to get something on La Digue, but generally this would actually be the first snorkel opportunity, and it's very nice snorkeling. So like I said, we have all the snorkel gear on board, but bring your sun shirts, bring your reef shoes, your wet dry shoes, so you can just get off with your same footwear that you step into the water and go on shore with up the beach. It's the same shoes you can wear out onto these easy walks on the islands. The walks are, you know, some hard ground, some beach sand, that sort of thing. And it's a place where we can already start to see the giant tortoises that are so famous of this whole area. So there's Alphonse, and it's absolutely lovely there. Now, a highlight for many people, or at least one of the things a lot of people will be going on these Indian Ocean itineraries for, is the Aldabra Group. And by the group, we mean Aldabra Atoll itself, one of the biggest in the world, but also Cosmolido is uninhabited, is absolutely spectacular. And you also have Assumption and a stove. So we have a couple of days to find the best island for the conditions that we have at the time, obviously with the big aim to land on Aldabra Atoll itself, although they all offer absolutely spectacular days there. And everything we do in this section revolves around the tide. So we might end up being on a 2-3 hour Zodiac cruise right in the middle of the midday sun, and you have to factor that into your outfits. You want sort of long sleeve types of sun protection shirts, nice and thin, longer shorts for a bit of sun protection, wide brim hats that sort of clip on because you'll be in the Zodiac, you don't want to blow off. Obviously cameras, binoculars, I mean, these are bird highlights. And with Aldabra, when we're cruising on the inner lagoon, you are often seeing the whole spectrum of species that you would see on a snorkel really well, just literally from the Zodiac. It's like looking in an aquarium. And here is where those polarized sunglasses that we always recommend will be just golden. If you can get yourself a pair of polarized sunglasses for these Indian Ocean types of trips, they really will go a long way, because it just cuts the glare and then you can see right through the water at so many more of the species. So Aldabra, we try to land on the main island, meet the rangers, see their research station, buy the mugs, of course, the big coffee table book. And we try to, on the incoming tide, we try to snorkel on the channel and or inside the lagoon a little bit. Otherwise, we can also snorkel on the outside as well. And on the high tide as well, we try to do a very nice long Zodiac cruise right through the lagoon, sometimes right from Grand Pass in the north down to the Pas du Bois on the west side. So it's really, we maximize our time there. Sometimes we're busy from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., which is literally the hours of sunlight. And it's absolutely fantastic if the weather doesn't hamper our plans too much. Of course, you can get big swells there as well, so that just adds to it. Here we go, some red-footed boobies cruising the lagoon with the frigates and the boobies, and also the Aldabra giant tortoise, which there are many, many of them there, and some of them are quite friendly as well. And then we pop over to Madagascar, and we start right in the north of Madagascar at a town, or big city, I suppose, called Diego Suarez, and it is a pretty cool start to Madagascar in the sense that we have, when we arrive, there are 24 4x4s lined up and ready to whisk us through the town of Diego Suarez, with this, which is sort of a bit of a derelict, interesting, photographically city, you know, so many influences from over the years. Portuguese, a big one, interesting colors, lots of wonderful sights. So these 4x4s whisk us through the town and then out into the more rural hills, and up and up and up we go to Amber Mountain, which is a rainforest up on a hill. And so the word rain should trigger you to remember to bring a nice, really light raincoat. The rain just switches on and off throughout this type of itinerary. And so if you have a nice thin one that you can just pack in your backpack, that's going to be great. And then also footwear that you don't mind getting muddy and getting wet. Those sort of hiking sandals that water can flush through are the best, especially if they dry nicely and if they can dry nicely overnight before the next day's adventure. Amber Mountain is a wonderful place to start Madagascar. We see big chameleons along the drive up there, and you'll stop in the forest and the guy will bend down and pick up the tiniest little Brachysia chameleon you've ever seen, the size of a fingernail, and you'll be like, how did these people find that? So the local guides are absolutely so talented here in Diego Suarez. And then we whiz back to the ship and off we go again. The next day we go to Nautihara, which is an uninhabited island. And this is one of those places which is the reason you go on an expedition cruise. It's almost impossible to get there. There's no sort of service running there. There's no tourism on that side of Madagascar that would just, allow you to get there. But it is a marine protected area, and it's this lovely sort of, I want to say, a muffin-shaped island that sort of sticks out of the water with these cliff lines and then just a few little low-lying beaches that we can access. Fantastic coral, although sometimes the whole bay is muddy from lots of rain and we can't snorkel anyway. But if it's clean, fantastic coral, wonderful nature walks. You can get a little bit of elevation on some of these walks up the hill. You can do a bit of DIY walking as well. It's not one of those ones where it has to be strictly guided, which is also nice at this point of the voyage. And we hope to do some snorkeling, but otherwise definitely can get you in for a nice swim here at Nautihara, and very, very hot. And then we pop around over to a slightly more touristic island called Tanikli. Tanikli is called a small jewel of an island. Nasi means island, and this is where people take day trips from the bigger and more touristic island, Nasi Bay and Nasi Kamba. So at Tanikli, one of the real benefits of it being more touristic is that there's quite nice infrastructure. You can walk up concrete steps to a lovely lighthouse up at the top. So the infrastructure is there, and the lemurs, the black lemurs, are quite habituated. So you can actually, a lot of the truly wild parks, the lemurs are really up at the top of the trees, and you often are just craning your neck to have a photo of a silhouette and a glimpse of a sighting, which is how they should be in their natural environment. But it is, of course, really nice as well when you come to a more touristic island and the animals are very habituated. So that's a real highlight of Tanikli, and sometimes we set up a beach bar ashore as well from the ship, or we set up some local arrangements for some seafood, and it's just a super, super place to spend morning or afternoon, or even a full day, with snorkeling being excellent here around the island, apart from the little highlights of things ashore. So tiny little island, Tanikli. And then we are over to Mahajanga. And from here on forward, there's very little snorkeling, because now you're giving a lot of mud input from rivers out into the sea this side of Madagascar. So it's not so much the sea highlights anymore, it's very much the land highlights. And this time we have about 12 or 15 of these minibuses, Taxi Bruges, and they are ready for us. We take the Zodiacs ashore, we hop in these Taxi Bruges. There's quite a lot of fantastic curios ashore where we land here at Mahajanga. We hop in the taxis and we all head off in convoy for this 3-hour long journey up a decent road, potholes for sure, decent road, amazing sights just whizzing past in these some farmy areas, some rural areas, until you weave your way all the way up to a national park called Ankarafansika. And here is where you can see a highlight species, the cockerel cephaka, which is here, the black and white lemur pictured in the photograph. And this is where you generally get to the campsite, the parking lot, and they're all just hopping around the parking lot looking at you. So it's very hard to scramble these groups, actually get them to go on their walks, because everyone is just so engaged with these amazing cockerel cephaka. And of course, you've got the reptiles as well. You've got lizards, lemurs, bird highlights as well. Absolutely wonderful in Ankarafansika. It's sort of non-stop, just being engaged with amazing sights and sounds. So it's quite a jam-packed day. And after our walks and sometimes a meal there in the park as well, we are back on the Taxi Bruges and all the way back to the port where we pretty much usually have to get going already. So there is a shorter tour option because this is quite a big day. But in my experience, no one's ever taken the shorter tour option in town anyway, because this is just such a highlight to get out there. It's such an adventure. Next day, we head on down to Moradava, and Moradava is where we will pass the Avenue of Baobabs. That's the famous road where you see all those incredible baobabs. Often it's the cover of various guidebooks, the Brat Guide, and so on and so forth. So that is possible as a sort of a half-day tour, the Avenue of Baobabs combined with the city of Moradava. But most people, again, commit to the big adventure, which is to go through past the Avenue of Baobabs and out to Corindi Park. Corindi, now we're starting to look at a much more dry area, much less rain, much more arid. Pachypodiums and other sorts of tree and shrub species and lemurs are starting to come out of the woodworks as we get down here. Little mouse lemurs popping out of the huts and the trees, and it's really, really fantastic. And it's one of the places in Madagascar where you have a decent chance of seeing the fossa, which is one of their mammal predators, one of the only mammal predators. So very, very nice to try and see that as well, although of course wildlife is wildlife. And then down to Tulia. So we're right now in the southwest corner of Madagascar in Tulia. And as you go around, there's different lemurs and different chameleons and different reptiles that you see on each section. The habitat, the climate's different. It's such a big island. It's offering so many different habitats and biomes. So when you get down here, is the first time you're actually able to see the ring-tailed lemur, which is one of the most famous ones people think of before they go to Madagascar. So it's great to get down to Tulia, and we go to often Reniala Eco Park. Otherwise, there's a closer tour to the Arboretum. This is a place where you could sometimes snorkel as a final snorkel, but that's usually not the focus. The focus is very much the terrestrial stuff. And so yeah, we get people out in the park to see all the key species that are found down here in the southwest corner. So that runs us through this particular Indian Ocean stepping stones, starting with some of the best wildlife highlights of the Seychelles combined with some of the best wildlife highlights of Madagascar. There is some snorkeling, but this is not a hugely strong snorkeling itinerary. It's largely wildlife highlights, hard to reach places, inaccessible places, and very, very special places indeed. So thanks so much, guys. I hope that is helpful to those of you who are thinking about doing this itinerary, sharing it with us next year. And we really look forward to getting out there and sharing these moments with you as well. Cheers.